Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up from May 31st through June 6th. This week I read 4 books, I watched 1 show, and I listened to 3 audiobooks. I am currently filming this at 9:29 p.m. Saturday night at an airport hotel just outside of Charles de Gaulle. It took us a couple hours just to leave Charles de Gaulle, and I only cried once, so I'm a little bit proud of myself about that. This means that tomorrow we are flying back to Canada. We actually fly into Vancouver, and then we've got quite a layover, and then we fly back home to Victoria. I'm very excited about being home, but of course that means I'm not getting home until tomorrow night, so I figured I should do this now instead of waiting until then, so here we are. However, the sun is gonna set, so I better start talking about books. The first book that I finished with my eyeballs this week is the last book I read in May, and that's The Jellyfish Problem. This is an arc that I'm pretty sure came out this week. This is about a marine biologist who specifically studies jellyfish, and she has a lot of things going on in her life right now. She's working at this lab. She's going through a grieving process because her best friend died about 7 months ago, and she's pretty sure it was her fault. And she gets a call from somebody she hasn't talked to in 11 years because they think that the small island they live on the other side of the country might have something of a jellyfish problem. She was half in love with this girl, so of course she drops everything to go solve this problem, but it does not go smoothly. That's all I'm going to tell you about it. I really enjoyed this. The water terminology used throughout the book I really enjoyed. And this problem was really different than what I expected. I didn't know anything going into this book, and I think that's the best way to do it. The next book we have to talk about is the first thing I finished for the Queer Lit Readathon, and that's Must Love Cake. This is a novella about these 2 monsters who live in this world that's kind of like our own, because I'm pretty sure this is set basically in Seattle, but obviously it's not the same version of Seattle as we have here. Both of them have been going through changes because one of them 7 years ago became a reanimated corpse, and one of them a couple of years ago sprouted horns. They meet up in a monster market and form a sort of friendship. It's really short, so I'm not going to tell you much more than that. I did enjoy it, though. Next, we have Not Quite Human, which is about an intersex monster hunter, and this one got a little bit spicier than I was expecting. This is the first novella in a 6-novella series, and I'm actually excited to read the rest of them because I did buy them as a bundle from the author, so I can go on and read the rest of them after I read everything else I need to read for the Queer Lit Readathon. And finally, for this category, we have Honey Mead Murder. This one takes place in the UK, and it's about this guy who owns a brewery that is attached to a pub, and he's got this crush that he's been meaning to ask out forever, and it turns out both of them have been wanting to ask each other out forever, and it just hasn't happened. But while they're at their very first date, which happens at a mead tasting that's actually at the brewery, something goes terribly awry, and now one of them is being accused of murder, so we gotta solve that because it wasn't him. This was cute and ridiculous, and it featured a couple of dog characters that I definitely appreciated, and this is also the beginning of a series, so I might go on and read more, I just haven't decided. The one thing that I watched this week is 2 episodes of Taskmaster, last week's episode and this week's episode. This is incredibly funny, as always. I really enjoy the little in-jokes that'll happen in between different tasks and then things that'll be brought back up in the episode. And the penultimate episode of this season definitely had that going on, which I really enjoyed. As for the books I listed this week, the first one was The Devouring Wolf. This is a middle grade book about these different characters who are werewolves and a completely different werewolf society than what I've seen previously. Basically, there are 2 different ways to be werewolves in this world. You can be born into being a werewolf, or you can choose to be a werewolf and be bit. However, if you're born into being a werewolf, when you finally get the call, you basically get this pack that's a total of 5 werewolves where you are all kind of psychically linked. Whereas if you're turned later in life, you don't have the same kind of connection. Our main character in this one has been waiting every year, and this is finally the year it's going to be her turn, because you could turn when you're 9, you could turn when you're 10, you could turn when you're 11, but everyone turns by 12. She's finally 12, so this is the year it's going to happen, right? This, again, is the first in a series, and I would actually be delighted to continue this series. It's really good. Another book that's first in the series is Game Changer. I don't think this is one I really have to explain all too much because the Heated Rivalry TV show took off, and it's wonderful, and I absolutely adore it, and I'm looking forward to a season 2 whenever that's happening. But if you've watched that first season, you know the story that's going to happen in Game Changer because it happened in that first season. There was a whole episode that was kind of based on the 2 main characters of this book, and then we also got to see kind of the end of this book as well in that series. However, if you've never heard of Heated Rivalry before, Game Changer is about this romance between a guy that works at a smoothie shop and a very famous hockey player from his city. The hockey player, for obvious reasons, because nobody's out in the league, is closeted. And anytime he's ever slept with people, it's been away from his own town, but he sees this guy in a smoothie shop and they both connect and a relationship forms from there. Finally, the last audiobook that I listened to this week had nothing to do with Queer Lit Readathon. It was just something I put on hold ages ago and it finally came in and it was only 3 hours, so I figured let's get it out of the way, get it back into the system for other people, and that's Animal Farm. This is a book that most people read in high school and I just didn't have to read it in high school, so it never happened. This one is political satire and I can definitely see why it endures, because this one was published in the 40s and it's still all too relevant, unfortunately. That being said though, I am losing light and I have to go back to that godforsaken airport in like less than 10 hours, so I'm gonna wrap this up here. That's it for this week. If you've read, watch, or listened to any of these, let me know. Put it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you're here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon, but back in Canada. Bye!